Somebody putting up the verse. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from 9th Canto, Chapter 21, text number 25. Please repeat after me. Sa krutvyam shukakanyayam. Sa krutvyam shukakanyayam. Brahmadattam ajijanat. Brahmadattam ajijanat. Yogi sa gavi bharyayam. Yogi sa gavi bharyayam. Vivakshenam adatsutam. Vivakshenam adhatsutam. Sakrutvyam shukakanyayam. Brahmadattam ajijanat. Yogi savagavibaryayam. Vishvakshenam adatsutam. Sakritvyam shukakanyayam. Brahmadattam ajijanat. Yogi sa gavi bharyayam. Visvakshenam adatsutam. Sakritvyam shukakanyayam. Brahmadattam ajijanat. Yogi sagavi bharyayam. Visvakshenam adatsutam. Any more Matajis? Sakrutvam sukakanyayam. Brahmadattam ajijanat. Yogi sa gavi bharyayam. Visvakshenam adatsutam. Word to word translation. Please repeat after me. Saha, he, King Rupa, King Nipa. Krutvyam, in his wife Krutvi. Shukakanyayam, who was the daughter of Shuka. Brahmadattam, a son named Brahmadatta. Ajijanat, begot. Yogi, a mystic yogi. Saha, that Brahmadatta. Gavi, by the name Gau or Saraswati. Bharyayam, in the womb of his wife. Visvakshenam, Visvakshena. Adhat, begot. Sutam, a son. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. King Nipa begot a son named Brahmadatta through the womb of his wife Krithvi, who was the daughter of Shuka. And Brahmadatta was a great yogi begot a son named Vishwakshena through the womb of his wife Saraswati. Purport. The Shuka mentioned here is different from the Shukadeva Goswami who spoke Srimad Bhagavatam. Shukadeva Goswami, the son of Vyasadeva, is described in great detail in the Brahma Vaivarta Purana. There it is said that Vyasadeva maintained the daughter of Jabali as his wife, and that after they performed penances together for many years, he placed his seed in her womb. The child remained in the womb of his mother for 12 years, and when the father asked the son to come out, the son replied that he would not come out unless he were completely liberated from the influence of Maya. Vyasadeva then assured the child that he would not be influenced by Maya. But the child did not believe his father, for the father was still attached to his wife and children. Vyasadeva then went to Dwaraka and informed the personality of Godhead about his problem. And the personality of Godhead, at Vyasadeva's request, went to Vyasadeva's cottage, where he assured the child in the womb that he would not be influenced by Maya. Thus assured, the child came out, but he immediately went away as a Parivarkacharya. When the father, very much aggrieved, began to follow his saintly boy, Shukadeva Goswami, the boy created a duplicate Shukadeva who later entered family life. Therefore, the Shuka Kanya or daughter of Shukadeva mentioned in this verse is the daughter of the duplicate or imitation Shukadeva. The original Shukadeva was a lifelong brahmachari. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta Prabhu. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakchurunmilitam Yenam Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Itinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Pasyata Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gauravaktaranda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. King Nipa begot a son named Brahmadatta through the womb of his wife Krithvi, who was the daughter of Shuka. And Brahmadatta, who was a great yogi, begot a son named Vishwakshena through the womb of his wife Saraswati. So it's very interesting to see the story of Shukadeva Goswami, whom we all hold very dearly and read the Bhagavatam that is spoken by him every day. So we see here Shukadeva Goswami exhibiting very extraordinary qualities, right from his birth. So when he was in the womb of his mother Jabali, he refused to come out for 12 years. And even though Vyasadeva assured him, right, that he will not be, attracted by or covered by illusion, he did not listen. And the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself had to come, right, and say that, I will give you the protection. Very similar instances are there in other parts of the Bhagavatam. Anybody remembers another famous story like this? Not exactly, not coming out of the womb, but very similar concept. Which great personalities, if I say, maybe? The four Kumaras, right? So in the four Kumaras, when Brahma created the four Kumaras, he created them and said, "Oh, my son, my dear sons, please help me in my task of creating progeny." At that time, the four Kumaras say, "Oh, Father, please forgive us. We want to remain." They were so attracted by the lotus feet of the Lord that they said, "No, we want to remain like young children." That's why the four Kumaras never grew up. So this material world, this at certain point, when children are very young, like in the case of the four Kumaras, right, they do not differentiate between boy and girl, right? That concept doesn't exist. That engagement of this material world is not even enabled, right? They're free from that entrapment. But as they grow up, that switch is turned on. And one can test for oneself, how well you have progressed in your spiritual life, like we heard in the previous verse when we were talking about Rantideva. How Rantideva was so elevated that Maya's control over him disappeared, evaporated, right? Just like when the sun comes up, the mist evaporates. Or just like the example in the verse that is given is, if one wakes up in a dream, the dream just goes away. Right? So, that is why in our Shastras, we say that our whole process is a very scientific process. We don't need any external validation on our progress in spiritual life. One has to just look within oneself and say, "Oh, is my switch still turned on? Is it working or not working?" As long as the switch is working, then we know that we are still under the clutches of Maya to a certain extent. Now, one may exhibit this, free from this, at different times of one's life, even as of today. One day you may not exhibit more quality of not being the switch being turned on, and someday you might exhibit the switch being quite strong. That's the nature of this world. So that's why one has to continue one's efforts in trying to get out of this engagements of this world. And the creation of the four ashramas is done so that this can be facilitated in a very simple way. So let's spend a little bit of time talking about Shukadeva Goswami and his very wonderful activities and pastimes. So we see here, as a young boy, he's just leaving the house of Vyasadeva. He's a very exalted father, right? And then going away. And then, obviously, in the first canto of the Bhagavatam, there is description of Shukadeva Goswami's coming to the arena of where Parishit Maharaj was preparing for just one second. Was waiting to be instructed on, okay, what should I do? Right? How should I um, deal with this situation he was put in, right? Um, because he was cursed to die in 7 days. So in Canto 1, Chapter 1, um, just one second. Canto 1, Chapter 19, sorry, not Chapter 1. The appearance of Shukadeva Goswami. Now we see here Maharaj Parikshit is repenting. That he says that the act he had committed against the faultless and powerful Brahmana was heinous and uncivilized. Consequently, he was distressed. So while he was thus repenting, he received the news of his imminent death, which would be due to the bite of a snake bird, Takshaka. So then he sat down firmly on the bank of the Ganges. Right? Then there's a description of all the different sages coming in: Atri, Chavana, Shradvan, Adishtanemi, Bhrigu, Vashishta, and all that. Then he sits down on the straw mat, right, waiting for receiving instructions. Text number 25. At that moment, there appeared the powerful son of Vyasadeva, who traveled over the earth, disinterested and satisfied with himself. He did not manifest any symptoms of belonging to any social order or status of life. He was surrounded with women and children, and he dressed as if others had neglected him. We always keep saying that how when, in these villages, the small children, they see somebody, who is not well dressed and just walking around almost like a madman. They surround him and they make fun and they keep running behind and all that, right? These small children's these things they do. So like that, he was surrounded by these women and children. There is a very good description. This son of Vyasadeva was only 16 years old. His legs, hands, thighs, arms, shoulders, forehead, and other parts of his body were all delicately formed. His eyes were beautifully wide, and his nose and ears were highly raised. He had a very attractive face, and his neck was well formed and beautiful like a conch shell. His collarbone was fleshy, his chest broad and thick, his navel deep, and his abdomen beautifully striped. His arms were long, and curly hair was strewn over his beautiful face. He was naked, and the hue of his body reflected that of Lord Krishna. He was such an exalted personality. He looked very much like the Lord. The hue of his body reflected that of Lord Krishna. He was blackish and very beautiful due to his youth. Because of the glamour of his body and his attractive smiles, he was pleasing to women. though he tried to cover his natural glories, the great sages present there were all expert in the art of physiognomy, and so they honored him by rising from their seats. So this physiognomy is by looking at the physical appearance of a person, one can determine, whether a person is elevated or an exalted personality, is like when the avatars are taken, right? What is that common thing we keep saying when you talk about different personalities, about their physical appearance? Huh? Ajana Bahu, say, right? Arms reach down to the knees. Huh? Raised ears, huh? That nose is sharp, huh? Ajana Bahu, say, right? It comes all the way down to the knees. And look at him, he was just as beautiful as the Supreme Lord himself. He had the hue of the Lord, it looked like the Lord. And just by seeing his physical appearance, see all these sages that were assembled, they were all much, much, much older than him. They were the biggest rishis of the entire universe. Because the who is who of the universe appeared at that time. Narada Muni was there. Narada Muni is such a great devotee of the Lord. Everybody stood up when Shukadeva Goswami comes. That shows what exalted personality he was. Maharaj Parikshit, who is also known as Vishnu Ratha, one who is always protected by Vishnu, bowed his head to receive the chief guest, Shukadeva Goswami. So he was made chief guest of the whole assembly. At that time, all the ignorant women and boys ceased following Srila Shukadeva. Receiving respect from all, Shukadeva Goswami took his exalted seat. Shukadeva Goswami was then surrounded by saintly sages and demigods, just as the moon is surrounded by stars and planets and other heavenly bodies. His presence was gorgeous and he was respected by all. The sage Sri Shukadeva Goswami sat perfectly pacified, intelligent and ready to answer any question without hesitation. The great devotee Maharaj Parikshit approached him, offered his respects by bowing before him, and politely inquired with sweet words and folded hands. So that is why in the Vedic literature there is a great deal of emphasis given on creating situations that are conducive for spiritual life. Especially in this matter, this matter of the attraction for a man for the woman, woman for the man, is a distraction. Actually, it is a significant distraction, not a small distraction, if one is not careful about this. And the result of this is unnecessary waste of human life and waste of time. That is why there are very clear instructions given in the Shastras how to be careful about this, how do we, protect ourselves from this. So, as Srila Prabhupada was establishing the Krishna Conscious Society, he recommended different guidelines to help us, keep this as part of the culture that we develop, the vasanas that we develop, and how we act in this world. So that's why in the Vedic system, there was a clear understanding that, okay, when you are a brahmachari, here is how one should behave. So that's why brahmacharis, and the children at the young ages, especially when they reach puberty and all that, the boys and girls are typically separated in the Vedic system. Right? Boys go and live in a Gurukula, where they are educated and taught how to build character and all that, with the understanding that most of them will become grihasthas, but the time when they're young is not the time for distraction. They should be focused, and there's a whole description of the urdhvaretasaha, urdhvaretha. Urdhva means going up, reta means the semen. So in many places in the Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada talks about the ojas, that is the high power energy, which is a fluid that is built within the body, that comes from not discharging semen and raising it up to the brain. So there is very nice. Recently we were reading in the Bhagavatam, not Bhagavatam, in Prabhupada's Transcendental Diary, when we were reading about his pastimes. Prabhupada was giving instructions to his to having a very casual conversation with devotees, and this issue comes up, and then Prabhupada gave some good guidelines on this. Can somebody share what kind of guidelines he gives for devotees? Anybody remembers how to deal with this? For devotees living in the temple, for both Prabhus and Matajis. Yes. Yes, that is the Vedic tradition. Prabhupada actually in that description talks about how the Vedic system recognized that this is a very strong force and it has to be properly channeled for most of the people. As I said, most people are going to become grihasthas. And in the Vedic tradition, there was an age gap between boys and girls, which was very scientific also, right? Because women, their productive years are in the younger years, and then the men, there's a scientific age gap between the two. So girls were married at a very young age, the age of puberty, between 13 and 16. Sometimes even earlier than that. But the girl was kept in the girl would continue to stay in her parents' house, but knowing that there would be occasions created for them to get together and all that. That is one of the things, to make sure that this distraction doesn't become an ongoing distraction. Yes, especially for the girls, so that they know, okay, I have my husband, and there is no distraction for them in trying to find somebody and all those things. What else? Anything else? Anybody remembers? So in that particular conversation, Prabhupada was saying that typically when Prabhupada, in fact, for the first time, when Mataji started joining the organization, this thing, they didn't even have access to like saris and all those things, right? They were trying to go to some place and all that. So the first time when Prabhupada, when he gets sick and he goes to India, then he comes back, Prabhupada brought a whole bunch of saris with him. And then he gave those things. He basically said, especially devotees of this thing, they should wear simpler dresses. And Prabhupada brought mostly white colored saris with some borders and things like that, and said, they should not wear too much attractive, flashy these things, so that the focus is kept on spiritual this thing. In other places, Prabhupada gave very clear instructions, like for example, in Pujari service, Prabhupada gave multiple instructions that even if a person is married, there should not be just a man and a woman in the puja, in the altar, or in the kitchen, or in the deity room, and things like that. Now, again, we should remember vidvam sapi karshati, and these are all necessary because one should understand that you are unnecessarily playing with a very strong force of nature, and it is dangerous. So better take good precautions in these matters. Right? So that is another instruction Srila Prabhupada gave. Any other things anybody else remember? At the same time, Prabhupada was so dynamic in his thinking. He had both men and women take very responsible roles in the organization, gave them a lot of opportunities to do very, very responsible services. So that was obviously as an acharya, he created that wonderful institutional situation. He gave Brahmana Diksha to women, right? Unheard of, right? In the entire Vedic system, completely unheard of. Srila Prabhupada did that. And that's why we see that, in our tradition, women are worshipping the deities, they're doing pujari service and all that by Srila Prabhupada's divine arrangement. So while we were reading about this is the 21st chapter. The previous chapter, there was another very interesting situation. Now, so I think we have only about 5 minutes time. It is a long story. I think it will be too much time. So here we see that Shukadeva Goswami is particularly praised for his very wonderful qualities. And the whole description of how the Shukadeva Goswami who has the Shuka who is the daughter is different from the Shukadeva Goswami that we all know about. The difference is highlighted here. So, in terms of how we apply these principles in our lives, one should practice these different instructions in a systematic way. So, in the progression of human life, the brahmacharis, yes, this is the instructions given where they are strictly separated and situations created for them to practice. Then in the vanaprastha stage of life, that's when one takes active role in becoming so much engaged in the Lord's service so that you can start distancing yourselves away from day-to-day family responsibilities and which takes away a lot of a person's time. And then a progression towards sannyas. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu obviously exhibited the wonderful qualities of how a sannyasi should live and what are the strict regulations and rules he should follow. So we see here in this verse, there is wonderful descriptions of that. And towards the end, in the 12th canto of the Bhagavatam, there's a very nice description of Shukadeva Goswami's final instructions to Parikshit Maharaj. I'll just read a few verses so that we can remember Shukadeva Goswami's wonderful qualities. This is in the 5th chapter of the 12th canto. Shukadeva Goswami said, this Srimad Bhagavatam has elaborately described in various narrations the supreme soul of all that be, the personality of Godhead Hari, from whose satisfaction Brahma is born and from whose anger Rudra takes birth. O king, give up the animalistic mentality of thinking, I am going to die. Unlike the body, you have not taken birth. There was not a time in the past when you did not exist, and you are not about to be destroyed. He goes on to describe different examples of how the body is separate from the soul. Then he says, my dear king, by constantly meditating upon the Supreme Lord Vasudeva and by applying clear and logical intelligence, you should carefully consider your true self and how it is situated within the material body. The snake bird Takshaka, sent by the curse of the Brahmana, will not burn your true self. The agents of death will never burn such a master of the self as you, for you have already conquered all dangers on your path back to Godhead. You should consider, I am non-different from the Absolute Truth, the Supreme Abode, and the Absolute Truth, the Supreme Destination, is non-different from me. Thus, resigning yourself to the Supreme Soul, who is free from all material misidentifications, you will not even notice the snake bird Takshaka when he approaches with his poison-filled fangs and bites your foot. Nor will you see your dying body or the material world around you, because you have realized yourself to be separate from them. Beloved King Parikshit, I have narrated to you the topics you have originally inquired about, the pastimes of Lord Hari, the Supreme Soul of the universe. Now, what more do you wish to hear? So we see, that's coming to the end of, in the 12th canto. So Shukadeva Goswami is a very exalted personality in our the parampara, who is glorified for his recitation of the Bhagavatam. We'll stop here. Anybody has any quick questions or comments? No questions? We should all have a habit of asking at least one question in the Bhagavatam class, so that there will be some discussion. Otherwise, it's just a one-way conversation. Okay, we'll stop here. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jai Shri Prabhupada ki, Bol Premanande.